Hi everybody, my name is Carrie and I'm in the education department here at the zoo. Welcome to today's Lunch and Learn. Today we are going to be learning all about our bald eagles. So we have one of our avian keepers in with the bald eagles right now, and she's going to be doing some training sessions. So hopefully they go pretty well. You know, working with animals is always like working with kids. You never know what's going to happen. So this is Petrie that she is working with, and she has Petrie trained to target. That's what you see that he's doing there. She holds out that stick with the bright colored ball on the end. He knows he needs to put his nose to it, and as soon as he does, he gets a reward. So it's all positive reinforcement with our animals here at the zoo. So his reward today is just a piece of chunked up meat, just like if you were to take like a steak or something like that and chunk it up and have it and put it in like a beef stew or something like that. So it's just chunked pieces of meats he's getting as his reward. And now it looks like she is trying to get him to target to be on the scale. So a scale training is very important here at the zoo. It's one of the things we try to train our animals to do as one of the first things, because it's a way that we can kind of manage their health. We know if an animal gets on a scale and they're lower or significantly higher than normal, there's something going on that we need to look at. We need to maybe readjust their diet, or maybe they're not feeling the best that day. So we can kind of track their weight to help us tell us how they're feeling. And then we can report that to our veterinarian staff in case there is an issue. They can come and check out the animal. So here we got, she's trying to get Petrie to target over to that stick, but he is loving his scale right now. Oh, maybe he's gonna work there, come up on his perch, target like he's supposed to. Like I said, working with animals is just like kids, so they sometimes do what you're supposed to and sometimes they don't. So we got him up on his perch there, and this is also a neat way that we can use to move Petrie around. So she can, exactly like Mallory's doing, she can use that target to move him around the habitat. She can watch him walk, she can watch him kind of flutter and fly and that kind of thing, and move around. So that's what the goal is. She wants him to be able to move around so she can see him move. Now here, she's actually doing a touch behavior. So she is working with him to allow touches on his wings, and that would be used in something like a physical exam. So she's using the target stick to get him to stay where he's at, and then she's touching him with the opposite end of the target stick to kind of simulate her hand. Eventually this behavior will work up to a hand touching his wing, so that we can do wing exams on him or things like that voluntarily without having to anesthetize him for his exams every single year. And it's just another procedure we do to make sure that our animals are nice and healthy. So now she's going to see if he will come over and target to his stump there. We'll get a nice pretty shot of Petrie if he decides to cooperate up there going on that stump. So put a little bit of food up there for him, see if he'll come on over. He's looking. So Petrie is one of 6 bald eagles that we have here at the zoo right now. Petrie is the only one that we do a lot of training with, and that's because of Petrie's background. Petrie was actually an imprinted bird, and I'm sure Mallory will tell you more about him in a little bit, but since he is imprinted, he has the best relationship with the keepers. Some of the other birds are still a little bit too nervous to do all this up close and personal training with our keepers. You can kind of see they're spread out in the back of the habitat, kind of watching Petrie from a distance, but not actually participating in what is going on. So another behavior that Mallory has been working with Petrie on is to kennel. So you can see that kennel in the background, and that's just a voluntary kennel behavior. We want to be able to have Petrie go into the kennel in case we need to transport him somewhere. And if any of you guys have dogs or cats at home that you have to kennel, you know how much of a pain it can be to kennel your personal pets if they're not trained to go into it. So a lot of our zoo animals we do actually train to go into their kennels so that we can transport them and we don't have the huge extravaganza that kenneling some of our personal pets can turn into. Oh, so now he is kind of doing what he wants to do. He's checking out that stump, ignoring the kennel a little bit, but that kennel behavior is a brand new behavior Mallory is working with, so you're just seeing the beginning stages of it. So a lot of times the very first stage of a kennel behavior is just getting them used to the kennel. It's something new, it's something big and different in their habitat. They're not used to seeing it, so just getting them close to it can be some of the beginning stages. So the fact that he's not running away from it and scared is always a good sign when we're talking about training. So bald eagles, a lot of people realize that they used to be an endangered species. I do say used to be. That's some exciting news that has happened in the last few years with bald eagles, is that they are no longer listed as an endangered species. Years and years and years ago, bald eagles were endangered due to a pesticide that we used. And that pesticide was something called DDT. And unfortunately, farmers would put it on their fields because it was really, really good at killing the mice and bugs and things that were bothering the fields of plants and stuff that the farmers are trying to grow. But unfortunately, those mice and things would end up dying from the pesticide, and then the bald eagles would eat them, and they would get a lot of that DDT built up in their system. It wasn't enough to kill the bald eagles, but it was enough that it turned their eggshells super duper thin, so that when the mom and dad bald eagles sat on the eggs to incubate them, they were actually smushing their own eggs, believe it or not. So the government actually made DDT an illegal pesticide. And they, after doing that, they started noticing that more and more of the bald eagles kept coming back. The eggs were getting stronger again, and eventually we were able to take our national bird off of the endangered species list, which that's a nice, fun, good fact for Earth Day today. That's why I wanted to share it with you guys. So she's got him targeting again. He was just squeaking there a little bit. If you guys have never heard a bald eagle call, it is not the majestic call that they show on TV. Bald eagle calls are a very high-pitched squeaking sound. And a lot of times when they do show bald eagles flying on TV, one of my favorite fun facts is they overplay a red-tailed hawk call. So that longer call that they play in movies over top of any bird of prey is typically a red-tailed hawk because it sounds a little more majestic than our national bird's squeaky sound that they make.
So how do you know if an eagle is a boy or a girl?
So with eagles, you can tell by blood tests, but if you're just looking, you can kind of tell by size. So boy eagles are considerably smaller than girl eagles, and that's true for most hawks, owls, eagles, things like that. So if you come to the zoo and look around our bald eagles, you can kind of look at their sizes and tell that the boys are a little bit smaller than the girls.
So what's the wingspan of a bald eagle?
The wingspan of a bald eagle is up to about 7 feet, believe it or not. So about 1.5 feet more than I am tall.
All right, Andrew, we'll ask the second part of your question when Keeper Mallory gets out here. She'll be able to tell you their specific weights for Petrie.
Yep. So bald eagles are actually called bald eagles even though they're not bald. You can tell looking at Petrie there that Petrie is not a bald bird. He's got a white head. And the reason they're called bald eagles is because originally in Old English, the word bald means white. So they were named after their white heads, but they're not bald. So that's just a misnomer a little bit. Some of our bald-headed bird friends would be like our Andean condors and our turkey vultures, but eagles have those pretty white feathers. And that is because of the misinterpretation between bald being an older word for white instead of bald meaning what it means today. So we have Mallory here now, and I'm going to turn it over to her and let her answer some of your questions and tell you guys a little bit about our bald eagles.
Yeah, thanks so much for being here, guys. So you just saw a training session with Petrie. Petrie is one of our younger birds, or at least one of our birds that we know the most about his age. So he is about 9 years old, and we only know that because he still had his juvenile feathers when he came here to your Akron Zoo. So they get those white feathers on their head, like Carrie was saying, at about 5 years of age. So we know when he came here, he was under 5 years old. So we can kind of guesstimate his age based on that. That looks like, let's see here, that looks like Barry or Knox, one of our other male birds. So he has a red band on his left leg. So that's how we can kind of tell them apart. It's just kind of like a bracelet. It allows us to easily identify them. But our females over here, all three of them are kind of perched in that back corner of the exhibit. We have Wayne, we have Lakota, and we have Spirit. And they are definitely the ones who rule the roost here. So they are our largest birds. Typically in birds of prey, the females are going to be larger than the males, though not always. But that is definitely true for our 6 birds. So let's see here. We've got Spirit all the way on the left. She has that gold or orange band. Then we have Wayne in the middle. She should have a blue bracelet, but she kind of decided that it was over. She was over it, so she got rid of that. And then we have Lakota there. She has that yellow bracelet on. And then we have one of our more shy birds, probably, there we go, that is Unity. He is our smallest bird, and he is all the way over on the left side there. And he's one of our more shy ones. He definitely keeps an eye on what everyone else is doing and makes sure he kind of stays out of everybody's way. And then we have Knox there in the back. He just kind of ran off behind a tree. He is, you can tell him apart if he vocalizes. He has a very deep vocalization due to some of his injuries that he sustained in his native habitat. So all 6 of our birds here, all 6 of our bald eagles, were actually injured in some way and were deemed non-releasable. So we'll see if Petrie turns around here. So whether they were injured, you can see Petrie there as he tries to jump off. Obviously has some damage to his wings there. I believe he was actually injured by falling out of his nest, and then was fortunately found by someone and turned into a wildlife rehabilitation center. But a lot of our birds were actually injured in collisions with vehicles. So all of them have either partial or full wing amputations, which is why they are able to be in an open air exhibit. They can't fly due to those injuries, and so they would be unable to provide for themselves. They'd be unable to hunt out in their native habitat. So they are here as ambassadors for their species. But one thing that you can do to help bald eagles, or even birds of prey in general, is to make sure that you don't throw your apple core or something like that. I always thought, it's like, oh, it's biodegradable. It's a banana peel, it's an apple core, something like that. You can just, you're done snacking on a road trip, you can just toss that right out your window and it'll be fine, right? Well, actually, that attracts animals that these birds like to eat to the side of the road. So maybe a squirrel or a mouse or something like that would come to try to eat that, your apple core or whatever, and then a bird of prey, maybe an eagle, would come down, try to feed on that animal by the side of the road, and then be injured in a collision with a vehicle. So that's just a really easy thing that you can do to make sure that you protect all of the native birds here in our area.
So Andrew wants to know, how much do they weigh?
That is a really good question. So they look pretty big, right? They have that 7 to 8 foot wingspan. They can be like 2 or 3 feet high, but they actually only weigh between like 7 and 12 pounds. And that's because they have to be able to fly. So if they weighed like 25 pounds, probably wouldn't be able to get that lift that they need in order to fly. And they are very strong flyers. They're gonna soar, and that's how they're gonna look for a lot of their prey items. So you can often see them soaring over waterways and things like that. They're looking for fish to kind of dive down and swoop down and grab.
So Reagan wants to know, what is their favorite food?
What is their favorite food? That's pretty tough. They get fed a variety of different things here. I would say their most favorite food would be their herring that they get. They really like that. So they get that once a week on Wednesdays, I believe, and they snack on that. So that is a type of fish. But they get fed everything from rats to quail, rabbits, all that good stuff. So to mimic their natural feeding schedule.
So do you by any chance know what the current bald eagle population in Ohio is?
I do not know the current population in Ohio. I want to say that I looked, and the most recent figure I found for population in general was about 7,000 pairs. We are working on current population in Ohio.
Yeah, we'll see if we can find that answer for you. We'll come back to that. So Elijah wants to know, how old can bald eagles get?
Yeah, that is a great question. So bald eagles can live over 30 years. So I've seen up to 50, and typically the median is about 20 to 30 years in the care of a zoo or an aquarium. A little bit less out in their native habitat. And what's really special about our birds here is that since they were hatched out in their native habitat, we don't know how old they are. They could be the oldest bald eagles in the history of bald eagles, and we would have no idea.
Yeah. In 2019, it looks like there was a total of 440 bald eagles counted.
440 bald eagles in Ohio.
Perfect. So we've got a couple people asking, could you just repeat how many males and how many females do we have here?
Yeah, exactly. So we have 3 males and 3 females here at the Akron Zoo. So our 3 females are still kind of clustered together in the back there. They usually are the ones hanging out together. And then our males are Petrie, Knox, and Unity.
Are we able to breed them here?
We are not able to breed them here, unfortunately, and that is due to regulations by the federal government. So actually all eagles are property of the United States government, and our permitting does not allow us to breed them.
So do you ever feed the eagles fish?
We do feed them fish once a week, and that is one of their favorite snacks. Though I have tried smaller fish with them, just as an extra treat, and they don't seem to really like it. They like those bigger fish that they can eat kind of all in one gulp still, though.
How big of a range do bald eagles have in their native habitat?
They have a pretty big range, pretty much all over North America. So they can range all the way from Alaska and Canada down to Florida and even a little bit into Mexico. So they range pretty far. And juvenile bald eagles actually will range more than their adults. So once they're adults, they kind of settle into a range, but juveniles will kind of fly around and find out a good spot that they want to be in.
So how many eggs can a bald eagle lay at once? Veronica wants to know.
I want to say it's about 1 to 3 eggs per clutch.
So is there a way that you can visibly tell a male and a female apart?
So that's tricky, and it would mostly be just kind of a good educated guess. So typically females are going to be larger than the males, but it's not 100%. So the only way to be exactly for sure is to do a blood test.
So do the bald eagles here have a pecking order?
Kind of. They do. They have a pecking order a little bit. I would say Spirit, that's the one right here in the front with that kind of gold band or orange band. She kind of rules the roost a little bit. She's our most vocal bird, so you can always hear her kind of at least like telling everybody else to get out of the way, whether they do or not. It is kind of situational. But I would definitely say that Spirit is kind of the one that is top of the pecking order. And then the rest of them, they just kind of hang out and do their own thing. Petrie kind of hangs out, and he thinks he's either, he's a person or all of us are eagles. He's not really sure, but he's more imprinted, so he definitely prefers to hang out with people other than his other bird friends over here. But he definitely gets along well with them as well. But he typically just kind of does his own thing. They all have different territories that they kind of hang out in, even in the exhibit or habitat. So these guys kind of hang out in the back here. Our 2 females that are a little bit less dominant than Spirit, Lakota and Wade, they spend right now kind of a lot of time in their bedroom. And then Knox really likes that back corner over there, and they all kind of know like where everyone hangs out, so they don't really tend to intrude where another bird is. But Petrie really likes this front perching here. He likes to keep an eye on everything that's going on. He likes to people watch. So when we reopen, be sure to check him out. He's always sitting right there just keeping an eye on everybody. He usually likes to say hi.
So do bald eagles mate for life?
They typically do, yes. So they are solitary in general, but in breeding season they will kind of come back to the same mate that they have had in previous years and build a gigantic nest.
Do we know the age of all of our bald eagles?
We do not know the exact ages. So I believe that Petrie is about 9, and I think Spirit is also about 9 or so. And then the other 4 we do not know for sure, because they were hatched in the wild, and they were out in their native habitat when they were injured. They came here, they were already adults, and so we had no way of knowing how old that they actually are.
So do the bald eagles ever play with toys or other enrichment items?
Yeah, so we enrich them 3 times a week, and that could be anything from putting their diet on a paper bag, or putting some balls in their pool and letting them kind of play with that. What they really like are different substrates, or if we put different browse, like branches of things in there. A lot of our girls will usually drag them around, and you can definitely tell that they had a good time with it because it's usually shredded everywhere the next morning, which is really fun to clean up. But they have a really good time with a lot of their more natural enrichment items. And then the physical toys, they're not super hot on sometimes, but they definitely will interact with them still.
So Ellie wants to know if the bald eagles ever make noise.
They do. Definitely. Spirit, like I said, is our most vocal bird. She's kind of the one in the front in the middle there. And obviously she won't do it, when we all want her to, right? But sometimes I go in there and it's deafening. She's just screaming away. Petrie also will vocalize pretty frequently. He was vocalizing at me during the training session a little bit. And Barry, or Knox, are one of our males. He definitely has a deep voice. We nicknamed him Barry because he has that deep voice, like a baritone in a choir, So sorry, I keep slipping into that. But Knox is he vocalizes pretty often. And I think I heard Carrie talking about how movies have lied to you pretty much, and usually they'll dub in a red-tailed hawk noise for an eagle because it sounds much more impressive than your typical eagle vocalization. They sound kind of wimpy for such a big bird, but it's definitely endearing.
So are the eagles always out in their habitat, or do they come inside?
They are pretty much always out in their habitat. They do have a little bedroom that they always have access to, but it is mostly outside still. It is just like a little sheltered area. But they are native birds, so they, you can find 441, I think, bald eagles in Ohio. So they are very well adapted to this environment and this climate. So they are very, very used to being out here and very comfortable being out in all Ohio weather. But they do have that bedroom that they can go into.
So why are they our national bird?
I'll let Carrie take that away.
So originally, there was kind of an argument between some of our forefathers when they decided to build the United States. And I know originally that one of the birds that was thrown out there was by Benjamin Franklin, and he really, really wanted a turkey. But that was voted down. I'm not sure who actually brought up the bald eagle, but it was decided by our forefathers way back when the United States was created that the bald eagle would be our animal. Partially, I believe I've heard, is due to how majestic they look when they are flying. They don't run around on the ground like a turkey. And also, it would make sense to me that since you can find bald eagles in almost all 50 of our states, that it makes sense to have that be our national bird.
And I don't know if you guys just heard that, but that was the sound of a... There we go.
That's Spirit.
So that is what a bald eagle sounds like.
So Petrie's joining in. Very impressive. They definitely get each other going.
So the last time Sarah was at the zoo, she saw a rabbit in their habitat, and they didn't seem to care about it being in there. Why did they leave it alone?
Yeah, because it is much easier to let me drop off food for them later in the day. They are very well fed and cared for, and they are, given as much food as they would like, pretty much. And so they are pretty full, and it's a lot of effort to go out and catch that rabbit. And also, they can't catch it in the way that they normally would due to their injuries. So normally they're kind of swoop down predators. They're not really going to be able to run after that rabbit and catch it with their talons. So as birds of prey, they have that sharp beak, as you can see. They also will kill with their feet. So they have really sharp talons, really strong feet that they're going to capture their prey with. And so if they're running after a rabbit, they're not going to be able to catch it and jump on it.
So, any fun facts about eagle feathers?
They have several different types of feathers. So their main body feathers are called contour feathers. They have those flight feathers, so they have primary and secondary flight feathers as well. You can see the ones covering their head and their tail are that white color that we, kind of identify with bald eagles. And then underneath all those contour feathers are downy feathers, and you can kind of see them trapped in the trees and stuff. They will molt those downy feathers fairly often. So like in this tree here, it looks like cottonwood or snowflakes or something are stuck in there. That's actually molted downy feathers that get stuck up there, and I try to hose and they don't ever come out. But those downy feathers are really good insulation for these birds. So if you ever see them puffed up, if you walk by and Petrie's all like puffed up and he looks chunky, he's trying to trap a layer of air underneath in those downy feathers, which is more insulating. So if you see him do that, or see any of our birds do that on like a chilly morning or something like that, that's what they're doing, is kind of like having a big puffy coat,
Another fun fact about our bald eagle feathers is that when our bald eagles do molt out their feathers and things like that, we will actually collect them and send them to the national government, because as Mallory mentioned earlier, all bald eagles are owned by the national government, and they take all those feathers in and they actually disperse them to different Native American tribes to use in different ceremonies. So we can't even keep any of our bald eagle feathers here at the zoo. We have to send them to the government so that they can be dispersed. So that's kind of a neat fun fact about them.
So, have you ever seen a spotted bald eagle? Gene said he saw one last week that was spotted.
Juvenile bald eagles can sometimes look a little mottled or spotted before they get in their adult feathers. So if it was like a juvenile one that's kind of brown and white mottly looking, then they do kind of look spotted a little bit. It could also have been a bald eagle that is going through a molt, and you were seeing some of those white downy feathers peeking out through the darker feathers. But typically they are pretty solidly colored, just like our ones here at the zoo.
Do bald eagles make good pets?
They do not. So pretty much only domesticated animals make good pets. So you can see the relationship that I had with Petrie when we were training, but it is definitely kind of a business relationship, if you will. He knows that if he does what I'm asking, he's going to get snacks, and he really likes snacks. But I would definitely not want to have him as a pet. It is not legal, for one, and it would be very difficult to house them and also provide all of their food items and things like that. So definitely best to let them live in their native habitat.
So what should people do if they see an eagle nest while hiking?
Feel free to admire it from afar, I would say. That's definitely going to be a spot that you would want to watch, because that would be something that could be really, really special to see. Definitely like a fledgling eagle, or if the parent eagle's coming in and building that nest and things. But please do not disturb it, and definitely leave any sort of fledglings alone and all that good stuff. So definitely admire from afar.
So are bald eagles ever able to be released?
They are sometimes able to be released if they have kind of a minor injury, or maybe they just have kind of a brief little illness or something like that, where they're not feeling so good. They're taken to a rehabber, and then there are definitely cases where they're able to be re-released. There are actually different tests that wildlife rehabilitation experts will put birds of prey through, making sure that they're still able to hunt and have that depth perception and all those skills that they would need to be able to provide for themselves back out in nature. So if they pass all their tests, they are free to be released.
So are bald eagles carnivores or herbivores?
They are definitely carnivores. They like to eat anything from, you know, little small mammals to fish. Sometimes they'll take other birds and waterfowl species, and sometimes they'll even eat dead things, you know, roadkill and things like that. They are definitely not going to be munching on grasses or plants of any kind.
So how far can eagles see? For their term eagle eye.
I'm not sure of an exact distance, but I do know it is very, very keen eyesight. That is going to be the main way that they locate their prey. We're looking to see if we can find a distance for you here. But it is, I once heard that like a red-tailed hawk could read a headline at an opposite end of a football field, so I would definitely think it'd be similar.
Yeah, so an eagle can see something like the size of a rabbit at more than 3 miles away.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, so about 3 miles away they can see. So do eagles gather in groups for any reason in their native habitat?
Typically they are solitary. They will find mates during breeding season. I have heard that they will sometimes gather in groups like where salmon is spawning in that season, but they're definitely not going to like be in giant flocks or something like that like you would see some of our songbirds around here.
Annie and Penny want to know if bald eagles have their white head when they're born.
They do not. So when they're first hatched, they are kind of all covered in downy feathers, and then when they get into kind of their juvenile years, they will be kind of all brownish colored, and they're not going to get that white head until they are about 5 years of age.
So since we're not allowed to breed them, how do we keep them from breeding?
We try to limit any sort of nesting material that they might have and kind of discourage that nesting behavior. So that's our main way that we kind of keep them from breeding. Sometimes it does happen, or they will just lay infertile eggs as well.
So somebody is asking, they saw a movie where an eagle came down and grabbed a dog. Is that real, or would the dog weigh too much for an eagle?
I would imagine it would depend on the breed of dog, but eagles are definitely very strong and, you know, good hunters, so I would say some sort of small dog definitely would be at risk of a bald eagle predation event.
What is the biggest prey that they can eat?
That is a great question.
I think typically bald eagles will eat maybe something the size of like a raccoon or an opossum. That might be some of the biggest things that they would eat here in Ohio. I have personally seen bald eagles like eating on a deer that has been hit by a car, but obviously the eagles did not take that deer down. I've seen like a group of them eating alongside the road on a deer carcass. But just hunting on their own, I would say something the size of like a raccoon or an opossum, which definitely can be the same size as some of our smaller dogs, like we just mentioned.
All right, so do you know how big an eagle egg is? Show the size.
About yay bigger, so definitely bigger than a chicken egg.
So do bald eagles have any natural predators?
As adults, not really. When they are younger, you know, definitely things like raccoons would steal eggs, or even go after chicks if the parents aren't around, or even some bigger, I want to say like loons, would go after fledglings and things like that. But as adults, they don't really have any natural predators. Their biggest threats to their populations are definitely human related, habitat loss, pesticide use, collisions with vehicles and things like that, power lines.
So, do the bald eagles ever play hide and seek?
Not really. you can see them moving around, and it looks kind of like they are, because they'll like pop in behind a tree or a log or something like that and kind of pop out the other side. And sometimes they will chase each other, just as, hey, this is my spot, this is where I want to be. But I don't think it would be hide and seek like we know it.
All right, I think we've got time for one more question. So how big can an eagle nest get?
They are one of the bird world's largest nests, made out of twigs and all that sort of thing. They can be 20 feet across and weigh up to 4,000 pounds. So it says one of the largest nests was found in Ohio in 1925. So we definitely have some once upon a time had some big nest builders here, but they make very impressive nests. Sometimes they even will fall out of a tree because they get so heavy, and they will come back to the same nest, I believe, year after year, and kind of keep building on it and things like that. So bald eagle nests are definitely impressive and very large. All right, so thanks so much for stopping by here to our Lunch and Learn, and I hope you learned a little bit about our bald eagles and was able to really get something out of that training. I know Petrie did. If not anything else, he just got a lot of snacks, which I'm sure he really, really enjoyed. Happy Earth Day, everyone, and thanks so much. We hope to see you soon.